The orange
I
pill.
find orange pilling such a it's such a horrible
I got
idea.
orange pilled. Some like weird tribal thing. This is your signal to each other. Like, I'm in the group.
I'm having the time of my life because I discovered Bitcoin and I'm out of all worries instantaneously.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna sun my balls. I'm gonna wear cotton. I'm gonna only eat steaks, and I'm gonna be orange pilled now, just like you. We're all the same now. But you know, it's like you're basically selling out to Wall Street for number go up.
Let's fully snow crash this stablecoin bill.
Yeah.
What would happen? Because if we had all these corporations issue their own money,
Like corporate-owned towns and cities and states, little corporate fiefdoms within the U.S. and like the U.S. is basically like a shell. I mean, that to me is where we're headed. And the stablecoin thing, I feel like, is one step there.
Here's the Progressive Bitcoiner with Margot Paez.
Okay, here's what was going to happen. We were going to have Trey Walsh and Mark Stefani, both former hosts of the show, on to tell us about their trip to Washington, D.C. A few weeks ago, or last month, I guess now. But Mark is, I think, on vacation, and Trey's daughter has a fever. So it's just us today on this show called The Progressive Bitcoiner, in case you didn't know. Where I'm Margot. I'm Margot Paez.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm Patrick
I'm your
Linus.
host.
So this is the Progressive Bitcoiner version of the Pinky and the Brain today, right?
Yeah. No,
Fantastic.
we're gonna rant about taking over the world or not. We don't have a guest. It's be the first time this show has not had a guest episode, but I thought, why not? Because everybody has guests, and usually it's the same ones. So what if we just don't do guests and then just talk about Bitcoin? And
Very good thing that we didn't talk about what we're going to talk about before we started
yeah, exactly.
recording. Very good. Yeah.
See, I told you. Let's just go live.
Yeah.
Let's just do this.
Well, I asked you yesterday, I sent you a text and you said something about some stable coin bill. And to be honest, I'm clueless. You're going to tell me something completely new because I'm out of all of the Bitcoin news. I deleted Twitter a year ago. And we should talk about whether there actually is something newsworthy in Bitcoin ever. The idea of having a weekly show based on news about Bitcoin and the development of Bitcoin is, to me, something that I, in the beginning, when I learned about it, thought is very, very, very relevant. And I'm at a point where I'm not sure we need this. And as you said, everybody's having the same guests over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with this, There is this Bitcoin community that I have my personal opinions based on what I'm experiencing here in Germany, where I'm honestly pretty critical about certain things. But this aside, maybe that's something for later. What's newsworthy in Bitcoin? What's this stablecoin thing? Should I actually be worrying about it? Or have I made a good choice of absolutely not following any of this?
I mean, it's legislation, right, that passed in the US. So not as relevant to Europe, I would say. But on the other hand, things that happen in the US do affect the rest of the world. So I think it's at least worth being aware of. I think before we get into that, but really quick, like I think it's an important topic, and it's one that I definitely just didn't pay any attention to. This legislation called the Genius Act. I heard about it. I was like, okay, why is it called the Genius Act? That sounds stupid.
Who gave it that name?
Of course, some cheeky lobbyist, probably, whoever wrote the bill, was like, hey, it's a good idea. Let's name it the Genius Bill, the Genius Act. And it's not very genius, but it does affect commerce and the concept of private money. And I think, that's something worth talking about. I think from the left side of things, we hear a lot about private money from the right side. And I have some issues with the arguments from the progressives in DC who were opposed to this legislation, because I feel like they have no idea what's going on. So most of their concerns are a little bit like did you even do your research? Like, do you even know what a stablecoin is? Like, do you know what this means for you, for your constituents? So yeah, I'd love to get into that. I want to get into that. But first, I do want to talk about why we were gone for so long, because it was a really long time for a podcast to be off the air. And I'm pretty sure everyone thought we died, which we didn't. But
we took the podcast from weekly to monthly and then stopped doing monthly.
Yeah. So we were gone. And the reason why we were gone so long was that I had this unexpected reaction to some medication that I was taking. And I was basically on a really fun trip for for a couple of months, and I had to take a different medication to address it. And then it took like a month to really get out of that and get back to my normal baseline. So I really couldn't do a whole lot during that time.
To fill everybody in, like, are we talking, because you said tripping, are we talking, medication passed on to you by a doctor, or medication passed on to you someone on a street corner? Let people
it's
know.
Very close. Might as well have been a street corner. No, it was my doctor. So I'll be pretty transparent about this. I have panic attacks sometimes. And so I was taking some medication, an SSRI for it. And it seemed like it was going well until it wasn't going well. And it turns out I just have a very atypical brain, I guess. Is anybody surprised there? Probably not. And it made me hypomanic. So I was like very revved up, hyper chatty. I wanted to drive my car through red lights and stuff. So yeah, so I had to deal with that. And it was very difficult to manage the side effect and the rest of my life simultaneously. So it took a lot to just kind of get past that to a stable point. And then there was this other medication I had to take to deal with it. And then I was on that for like a month, and that has like a whole other effect, and it really slows you down and affects your emotions. And so coming off of that also like caused me to gain weight. So like I had gained, I don't know how many pounds, but my pants were tight after that medication, which was not fun. But it meant that I didn't have to go and stay in the hospital until this blew over. So that was the upside. But yeah, it took time to just kind of be able to feel normal again, and still have to deal with my panic issues. But I had this whole experience in between, so that's why we were not doing a show.
You also just broke the unspoken laws of Bitcoin podcasts when it comes to health, because you have to be constantly, you have to be super very healthy at the best of your health, because you discovered Bitcoin and everything in your life is shiny and super, and there's mental health issues actually do not exist. Like Absolutely anything not. Else does not happen to
Bitcoin
us
fixes
anymore.
it.
Of course. What happened? Did you make a wrong transaction? Did you lose your keys? So what's the cause?
Somebody must have poisoned my Bitcoin with XRP. I really don't know. I have to check my wallet to see. But yeah, Bitcoin didn't fix this.
Yeah, too bad.
Yeah,
we're making fun of it, but it's sometimes the narrative around Bitcoin lacks a lot of authenticity to me, and I think a lot of it is, I don't know what it's due to, honestly, but I would love to know your thoughts, because I have a very European perspective, especially when I look on how people present themselves in the German space of the community. But what do you think is the cause of this image that everybody has to show this super self-improved side of themselves once they discover Bitcoin? I mean, a lot of things have changed for me personally since I discovered Bitcoin, and it has opened doors and it has made things easy, but it has also made things more difficult, And I'm open to talk about some of those things, not all of them, because I like to keep certain things very personal. But what's your perspective? Why is there this, or am I completely going wrong? But my perception is there is this attitude of everybody is showing like, I'm having the time of my life because I discovered Bitcoin and I'm out of all worries instantaneously.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. I mean, I've seen this over the years on Twitter. People have gone through these various health fads, like, soy, or like, no, seed oils are bad, carnivore diet, sunning your balls. I mean, literally, only wear cotton shirts. It's really weird. I think Bitcoin is sort of contrarian, or people came into it very contrarian. Like, nobody thought Bitcoin would succeed. Bitcoin on certain scales, certain measures has succeeded. It's made people wealthy. And I think people just think like, yeah, well, if I was right about this, I'm probably right about everything that is contrarian to the mainstream, right? So, but I don't know. I mean, I have seen, people, certain podcasters posting pictures of themselves, flexing their muscles, showing their six pack or wannabe six pack, or it's a weird thing. I don't know. It's some like weird tribal thing. This is your signal to each other. Like, I'm in the group. I'm doing great. We're healthy. We made the right choice, I guess. If you make the right choice, that should mean everything falls into place, is the best that I can guess. But obviously it's not true.
And there's, like, you pointed at something that has this sense of belonging that when I was active in the Bitcoin community, never really spoke about this because I usually prefer to stay on the sidelines now that I gave up my German podcast over a year ago, that I had with my wife and a very good friend of mine. But this community that I found when we started the podcast, we had no idea of it, because we just discovered Bitcoin in our own ways and through the English-speaking community, or the content that we found online. Actually, it was an Andreas Antonopoulos book that I had no clue what it was about, mostly because I couldn't read code. But everything that he writes in between those lines of code just fascinated me, and this was kind of my entryway. And at some point, we annoyed everybody that we knew. Experiences that most people go through, and then we realized, okay, let's people told us, well, do something anywhere else, talk on a podcast or something. We started this and we discovered this community. And I have to be honest, I was never the person, even when I look back at childhood days in school, who had a big sense of belonging. There's always this sense like, I see these groups and I think it would be nice to be with them. But actually, when I look at them, when I see what they do, I'm good. So I found my groups of belonging way later in the punk rock scene, and going to concerts and then sports, mountain biking, skiing, those kinds, but more outsiderish people in a way. Like, mainstream belonging was never my thing. And then I find this community, and this is my perspective on the German speaking, so Austria, Switzerland, and Germany. And I realized that there's so many people that seem to have found something that I felt they were really craving, but it was actually not Bitcoin. It was not the self-sovereignty part. It was the community part. And I think there's more meetups in Germany than anywhere else. And wherever you go, it's the same. It's basically the same. And it's actually not that many people in the end, because they meet annually at some places, and then it might be 500 people or so, that show up, which I think is in a sense a lot compared to other niche, weird, nerdy topics that people meet in bars to talk about. But my feeling was, I didn't want to get into something. I don't want to be famed here, because what I notice is, like, it's kind of everybody relies on each other. And as long as everybody claps, the thing works. You know what I mean? Like, clapping for each other, applauding each other, but really not looking outside of this bubble. And we wanted to do something to address our friends, a lot of our friends on the left, who were completely ignoring the fact of Bitcoin because of all the things we know about energy, the environment, and not being interested in gaining wealth at all, which was never an intention in my life before, and still isn't through Bitcoin. I want to be okay. I want to take care of my kids. I want to do possibly more good than bad with my time being on this little tiny planet. That's it. I don't care about much more. But I found this honestly kind of disturbing that I thought, like, I don't even want to be famed by anyone here. I don't want to be successful there. And then we quickly found out it's pretty much impossible to be successful with a Bitcoin podcast outside of this community. And we reached out and we had guests that were refugees. We had guests that were, activists and so on. We tried to get international guests, how we met international guests on the show. You were actually one of our very first guests back then. And this community started getting uncomfortable about us doing this. It's kind of like we opened up something that they wanted to keep for themselves, which I find really odd, because the only reason that I had to go public talking about this, where I was just like, by pure luck, being at the right point, the right time, someone explaining it to me and being persistent and telling me, you have to look into this. This is going to be good for you and your family. I thought I wanted to share this. And then I find a community that if I want to continue doing this podcast, we were at a point where we got successful as sponsors and it turned it into a business. And we decided, like, no, we don't want to do it for the sake of this community. We don't want to give them the guests that they expect. We want to open minds. We want people to start thinking. We want to talk to people outside of the Bitcoin
You mean you
space.
don't want to brainwash people? You don't want to get them into the cult, Patrick? Come on.
Look, I told you, be careful. You're going to have me rant about stuff, because this is where I'm
Don't forget,
pissed
we've
at the
got other
memes.
topics to discuss, but let's continue.
Now, how do you think about the Bitcoin memes, to be honest?
The Bitcoin memes, the orange pill.
I find orange pilling such a it's such a horrible idea.
I got orange pilled. I've literally heard people say that they were orange pilled in XY, like X a year. Like, yeah,
I would not want to be
my friend
orange
pilled me. I got orange pilled in 2021. Like congratulations.
That doesn't sound very self-sovereign to me, to be orange pilled. It's me. It's probably my background from university and stuff, but I really care about this stuff because I went into the whole what is a meme thing,
Yeah.
And like the orange pill is, it sounds like somebody's forcing something down your throat to me. And even if you look back at the Matrix, where this comes from this decision, there's the blue pill and the red pill. Choose, Neo.
Yeah.
This is a choice. The orange pill does not sound like a choice between two colors.
I guess somebody chose to take the orange pill. They could have taken the red one. They chose the orange one, and they got Bitcoin, apparently. Honestly,
I can be picky with words. I know that, but I think these kind of things matter when you take this perspective out of the bubble.
Yeah, so
when you look at how are we being perceived,
Patrick, I think the problem is that people are looking for their tribe. That is just human nature. We're tribal to begin with. It was good for survival. And now in this society, we kind of don't really need tribes so much to survive, but we still have that instinct looking for our people. And I think that that's all it is in the end, is that people want to be part of a group. They feel safer in a group, and for evolutionary reasons, cooperation, even though a lot of people these days poo-poo on cooperation and collective action, which we can talk about too. The reality is that people are still wired that way. So like people come into Bitcoin and they start adopting all these ideas like, oh yeah, I'm going to sun my balls. I'm going to wear cotton. I'm going to only eat steaks, and I'm going to be orange pilled now, just like you. We're all the same now. Like, I think that's all it is. It's a cult group mentality. And I think, you see this in other, what we call fandoms, a fandom, right? Like you've got the furry fandom, you got people who cosplay, and then you've got the Bitcoin fandom. And the Bitcoin fandom is also tied to a digital currency, digital asset that is also being adopted by Wall Street and turned and financialized into all sorts of things. This is just the beginning. And I think, that's the weird thing about it, is that, it's still like very cultish and there's this in-group mentality, but at the same time, it's also being adopted by Wall Street and being turned into this financial tool, a way for them to make money. And I don't know. I think that's interesting. I totally get, like your feeling of, you don't want to feed into that. You don't want to just feed the machine. Like, you wanted to share this with other people, spread the good word, proselytize, I guess. And I totally get you. I mean, I felt the same way too. I really wanted people who, climate activists to understand. I wanted progressives to understand Bitcoin because I thought this was a really useful tool, and that they were really, really had it misunderstood, had it all wrong. And I feel like our own narratives in this space made it very hard to achieve that, when it shouldn't have been that hard. And I think that, these narratives are what drove us towards Wall Street adopting Bitcoin before most people adopting Bitcoin, which is really unfortunate. And it was, this is where the rant starts coming in. But, it's like you're basically selling out to Wall Street for number go up, because ultimately, in the end, beyond all of the memes, the reality underneath all of that is that most of the people in the space just want to get rich, and they think they're going to get rich off of Bitcoin. I mean, that's all these people really think. And we're sort of here in the corner watching all of this and saying, like, what? Why? I mean, like, we're the progressive Bitcoiner here. We're sort of in opposition to that. But I think that we sort of delude ourselves at the same time as progressive Bitcoiners into thinking that, we're doing a good thing, and we may not be doing a good thing either. So I've been thinking about this a lot. Like,
I see this. The part with Wall Street, if this revolutionizing money protocol on the internet is good enough, and this property of store of value is good enough and better than in all the systems that we know, then this whole Wall Street thing is inevitable. This did not happen because of the community or the memes. Actually, I don't even think the community is in any way an actual representation of the people holding Bitcoin. Because the people holding Bitcoin, like, just by numbers, the amount of people that have Bitcoin, let's just say people that hold Bitcoin in cold storage, I would really love to know the percentage of people that are actually involved anywhere inside of the Bitcoin community. I think it's super, super small. So I do not see the Bitcoin community, which I largely see on Bitcoin Twitter, because ever since I deleted X off of my phone, I think it was even still called Twitter then, I haven't seen this anymore. So, like, it's like gone. I don't know it's there anymore. So I don't think that the memes and all this have an influence on that. But the memes, I think, have an influence on I mean, a meme is the smallest unit of culture, This is how it's basically been, the term comes from, I think it's Greek, mimesis, like imitating things. And it was Richard Dawkins in 76. He wrote a book, The Selfish Gene. And that's where the term originates from. So a meme is the smallest unit of culture that is passed on like a virus. That was his idea. So basically taking this Darwinian concept onto cultural units of meaning. And if we want something to be passed on successfully, should we not choose memes that are meaningful to what it actually is? And to be honest, we don't even have to go to the orange pill or the rabbit hole or any of this. We have to go to the name Bitcoin itself. To be honest, Satoshi got so much right, but the name is complete bullshit. I mean, honestly, would you call, if you would have called the first car Fuel Horse, This wouldn't, you know what I mean? It makes no sense to have the word coin, the physical representation of money in
Bitcoin.
bronze, silver, whatever it is, to put that into a digital next step of what that should have been. It makes no sense to me. And I've always been, and look at 95% of all the videos, AI generated or not, or if it's stock footage or blog posts with the title image, it will always be this golden shiny coin with a bee and those little circuit board thingies on it. This makes no sense. If you want to explain anyone that this is a digital representation of money, then don't use an analog representation of money as its name or as its mostly used image, you know?
Well,
I mean, maybe these are small details I'm complaining about, but for me it's just like something that got so aware of once I stepped out of this bubble.
Well, we also call miners, and they don't actually mine anything, which confuses people as well. Like,
true.
You don't actually dig anything out of the ground. It's just computers running code. Yeah, I think, to be fair, there was a bunch of nerds that started Bitcoin, right? It was launched on a cryptography mailing list with a bunch of cypherpunk nerds that were just good at coding and loved the internet and loved cryptography. And it blew up into this thing. It was a good idea, but it wasn't designed with a marketing team. So I sort of can sympathize, like feel like it's okay. Yeah, branding is bad, but look where it came from. What do you really expect from these people kind of thing?
Right.
But I mean, I get your point. Like, but I think now the term Bitcoin just has zero meaning to it. Like you say it doesn't mean anything other than, it's this cryptocurrency that is dominating, 66% of the market cap of all cryptocurrencies. And, and Trump is now like, excited about it, I guess. But I don't know. I feel I get what you're saying. It's hard to talk about Bitcoin, but I don't know. I think these days it doesn't the name doesn't have any. I don't think it evokes anything.
I think there has to be a name that follows it. I mean, Bitcoin, to be fair, it's the protocol we're talking about. This is not going to be used in 100 years. My guess. I think not. Not if it's going to be successful beyond the store of value thing. And this is not what I want it to be successful. It's good that it's there. It's good that Bitcoin does that well. That's the foundation of one of the three aspects of money. But I want it to be used as a peer-to-peer, everyday money by everyone. And that's what my interest in talking about it publicly is, that people start using it. This is what matters to me.
You're talking about, I want peer-to-peer. Originally, that's what the white paper said. It was a peer-to-peer, cash system. And these days, we're talking about a store of value. And I hear, one of the memes I tend to hear is sort of like this inevitability of like, oh, well, store of value first, then the medium of exchange will come after, which I don't think I don't think there's historical evidence that that's how money comes about. Right? I think if it's easier to exchange X, a block of wood than it is to exchange 5 horses, and maybe we'll just exchange a block of wood, right? I don't think that this whole like store value first narrative is really based on anything real, but this brings me to the stable coins because
not yet, because it could be a part of it. But I have one more point here.
Okay.
Because what you're talking about is culture. That's cultural development, and every money went through this process of developing a culture of actually using it. And I think I'll phrase it as a question. Do you think Bitcoin, despite the store of value, has any culture? Because I don't think so. Like, not yet.
Hi everyone, hope you're enjoying the episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Bitbox. Now, Bitbox is a hardware wallet that's open source, incredibly secure and easy to use, and it's what I'm using to safely secure my Bitcoin in cold storage. Now, I know self-custodying Bitcoin can really be intimidating, but Bitbox is designed for ease of use without compromising on security. It's USB-C compatible and allows you to easily back up and restore your private keys with a micro SD card, which is really cool. Now, you can purchase the Bitbox using the promo code TPB at the link found in the show notes for 5% off your purchase. And I really want to thank Bitbox for their support of the podcast. All right, I'll let you get back to the episode now.
There is a culture, but I don't really know that the culture is around using Bitcoin as money, as on the surface. You have developers who are building things, so tools so that you could use Bitcoin as money, but I don't know that that's going to become the mainstream of Bitcoin adoption, that people are going to be using it. I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing things like Strike is going to be making it possible to automatically transact in Bitcoin, not Strike, I'm sorry, Square. These little Square, I don't know if you have those in Europe, but here we have these little Square processors that people use like in small businesses. And it's just a payment processor. You swipe your card, tap it with your credit card, debit card, but it'll be able to accept Bitcoin automatically. And if the merchant wants, it'll automatically convert, I think, into dollars for them. So that's kind of an interesting development. And I don't know if this is true. I saw this on Perfect Union, like a Most Perfect Union's Twitter page, where they said that PayPal was going to implement using like hundreds of cryptocurrencies at their merchant checkout. They were going to implement that in all of their checkouts. So I see that kind of resurfacing, which is interesting to see. But most people are not willing to spend their Bitcoin because they're worried about their taxes. Bitcoin still is treated in a way where you have to deal with capital gains, and if you sell it. So that's a problem for a lot of people. So even if you institute that, they may not use it. Which is why I think the stablecoin thing is interesting, because the Genius Act basically makes stablecoins a type of private money that you can transact in, that you can use.
So this would take away the restrictions that like the tax,
but only
for restriction.
Only for stablecoins. Stablecoins, on a particular class stablecoins, those that are fully backed by a mix of dollars and probably treasuries, short-term treasuries, I think. And which is, some people are saying like fully backed reserve, but this one economist, Lawrence White, who is, adjacent to the Bitcoin space, kind of an Austrian economist type, has clarified multiple times on Twitter, it's not a full reserve currency, these stable coins, because they're not backed by dollars. They can be backed by a liability, by a treasury, by US debt. And I think that's a problem. But I mean, I guess I'll say why. I think it's a problem because, you're linking these stable coins through treasuries back into the entire financial system, which could create, global monetary instability if things go wrong. Now, there's some things in the legislation that are supposed to, protect against that. One is that they're supposed to do publish monthly their reserves. So they're supposed to have some certain amount of transparency, but you don't have to audit them unless you're a certain size, money-wise. Then you're supposed to get them audited. So we're talking about like your, SEC returns type thing. You get those audited, sort of similar thing. But of course, that has never really stopped corporations or banks from finding ways around these rules. I'm sure they're there, and I'm sure we'll see that. And so it is I think it's concerning. I'm concerned that people are so excited about it and not thinking about, like, could they potentially create an entirely new financial crisis with these coins, these stable coins. I mean, they have depegged in the past. We've seen at least one of them depeg and go down to 84 cents, I think, something like that. So, I mean, these things can happen. I mean, the companies themselves are the ones self-regulating and, ensuring that they've got enough treasuries. I mean, if they fail, okay, right? Okay, there's a law that said, well, we're just going to take away your regulated right to exist, but it doesn't. Experience shows that Wall Street is not afraid of, taking high risks when they think they can get around regulators. So, 2008 is a pretty good example of this. So I'm concerned. I'm also concerned that and disappointed because it is basically saying these are a private money that you can use in place of Bitcoin. And depending who you ask, some people will say, oh, well, that's just inevitable. That's just how the state works.
Wait, what do you mean in place of Bitcoin? Because
I'm saying
right now I don't see the connection
because
to Bitcoin.
You can't do that with Bitcoin. I mean, legally you can't. You and I, we could be, in Berlin, and I'll say to you, hey, Patrick, let me just send you something on Lightning, okay? To pay for my dinner. You cover it, I'll pay you in Lightning because I don't have any euros, right? We could do that, right? Legally, in the US, legally, you would probably have to keep track of all of these transactions that you made and document them in your taxes and pay some type of capital gains on that. It's not legal. So there's been a push to try to say X be below X amount. You don't have to do that, so that to encourage people to transact in Bitcoin. But as far as I can tell with these stable coins, you don't have that restriction. They're classified as a type of money. So you can use this at a merchant checkout. You could use Amazon coin as money and it's pegged to the...
But how would...
Yeah, go ahead.
The thing is, I'm just super stupid guy who has no idea about the technological side. That's why when I ask these questions about culture, it comes really from a stupid perspective, because I think I want this technology to be used by people. How can this happen? And I'm just asking these questions, and I hope somebody smart finds a technical solution for it. And these things that you said, like this example with these blocks, this is one of the things that I find awesome, because I don't think we need merchant point of sale devices that are super complicated and people have to learn debit. No, we need something that they already know when they can swipe a credit card and can swipe a debit card, whatever. And then there's all of a sudden these same devices have a third option, which is Lightning or whatever. This is what I'm interested in. But all you just explained to me about stable coins and this act, to me, it sounds like just another representation of the fiat system with a lot of potential for surveillance. Where is the connection to Bitcoin? I don't get what this... because we said it's Bitcoin news,
Well, it's the connection is that Bitcoiners supported this legislation.
But okay, why? What's their interest?
Why? I don't know. There's Bitcoiners out there who want to use stable coins. I think honestly it comes from this idea of a free market and this separation of money and state, have a private money. Once upon a time we had banks that used to issue their own IOUs, basically their own currency. We had that in the US and in Canada and other places. Scotland, I think, is another example of this free banking era. And in the US, it collapsed because there were certain regulations that made it difficult to, I guess, shore up your business. If I understand it, if I recall correctly, it was they were restricted to certain jurisdictions. So, and at the time, agrarian culture was the thing. So if crops failed in one area, there could be a problem, a run on the bank, whatever. So, that was more successful if these banks were allowed to spread out geographically. And the whole system, what before used to be, these during this era, the banks would, just like they're asking of the stablecoins now, they would post, what their reserves were. And you could go up and you could say okay, yeah, I don't want to bank with them. I'll bank with these other people because I don't know, they don't have a lot of reserves. Maybe that's why I don't want to bank with them. And that's how it used that how it worked during that period of time. And I think for some Bitcoiners, they want to see that again because it's allowing the market to do this, and that's one driver for it. The other is, this like libertarian, keep the government out of everything sort of thing, right?
But what would replace that, I mean, if I think of this right now, and if we leave this to the market, and you said, definitely not a fan of the US dollar, but I would be very much less a fan of the Elon or the Bezos dollar.
Exactly.
Because if this one loses value because some idiot crashes his yacht into a bridge or does whatever and steals from whoever, I don't want that. I would honestly,
well, that's the concern.
I'm saying this
right?
on a Bitcoin podcast, but I would choose the US dollar and every government currency over that. I wouldn't want these people to be in charge of money that people depend on for their daily lives.
Exactly.
This is not a good idea.
Exactly. So this is why I'm opposed to this. And unfortunately, I didn't know what was going on until it was too late. And then I was like, wait a minute, what just happened? I've been busy here trying to do research on load flexibility and Bitcoin miners. And you're telling me this stablecoin bill passed, and then simultaneously there's this anti-surveillance CBDC act that they're trying to push through Congress, which would stop the government from basically providing an alternative, like their own digital currency. So I'm, it's very concerning, but I think within the context of the US in general, it's just like, this is just one step towards the complete destruction of government in the US. This selling off of public resources, right? Taking the government out of everything, which is, I think, look, I consider myself an anarchist, but I don't live in an anarchist world. And I kind of would prefer to have like some public option for things where there's some political oversight of the actual people who live in this country and who have to live under these laws. I feel like the stablecoin legislation is one step closer to basically a snow crash world, this dystopian world. I don't know if you've read Snow Crash, Patrick.
You actually or was it Shinobi? I don't know. Told me to read it. I read it.
Oh, great!
And I finished it a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
awesome.
I completely see your point. Everybody who hasn't read it, please read Neil Stephenson's novel Snow Crash.
Yeah, it came out in the 90s. It was very forward looking at the worst things that could happen with the internet. Right there was, and everybody. All these tech bros seem to have like read it and were like, oh, this is a really great idea. Let's do this. Let's have those burb claims where, we basically live in neighborhoods that are run by Pizza Hut and Amazon and whatever, like corporate owned towns and cities and states, little corporate fiefdoms within the US. And like the US is basically like a shell. I mean, that to me is where we're headed. And the stablecoin thing, I feel like, is one step there where we're going to be transacting in Trump coin. Like, what do you want, Patrick? Do you want to buy this with Trump coin or Amazon coin? Because let's not forget, Trump just before this launched Trump coin, which is a stable coin, right? And apparently he had some crazy deal. I don't remember if it was like with Saudi Arabia or something, some Saudi Arabian or Emirati person, like millions of dollars pumped through his Trump coin. And he's the president of the US. I mean, this is just, to me, it's just like, okay, another step toward dismantling whatever the democratic experiment, republic experiment that the US was, and replacing it with a corporatocracy. So that's what I see the stablecoin legislation as. I don't see the upside of it. I personally would rather have a CBDC than Trump coin as my legal tender, or Amazon coin, or Apple coin, or JP Morgan Chase coin, which are all potentially possibilities. I don't think people realize, Patrick, which is why I really wanted to talk about this. I know it took us like 30 minutes to get here, but it's like, sorry, bearing the lead.
It was my fault.
But maybe we'll tell people at the beginning, like, stay for a little bit longer. We get warmed up. And now that we're warmed up, that, the reason why I want to talk about it is because I don't think we really understand the repercussions of this legislation. It is really an opportunity for corporations to really reshape the way that we transact and the type of money that we transact. We've never existed in the US or, at least not since like the 1900s or since the 19th century. We've never really had more than one currency, right? And not at this scale either, except for that free banking period, which ended horribly. But now we could say, okay, so we come back into this free banking era. Okay, maybe there were potentially plus sides to having this happen. Interest rates were settled dynamically, or, they were discovered in a natural market way. Like maybe there's upsides to that, but we don't live in the 1800s. We're not in a mostly agrarian society or on the edge of the Industrial Revolution. We don't have like a couple of million people living in this country. We've got 8 billion people in the world. We have $1 trillion, people who are worth trillions of dollars, like Elon Musk. We've got these giant corporations who can influence everything and are. We've got the advent of AI. Like, why would we want to do this now? It's not going to work out in the idealistic way that we imagine the free banking era to have worked out. Now we're setting ourselves up for like a horrible situation, I think. We are living in, as Yanis Varoufakis has called it, a technofeudalistic society, or that's where we're headed, right? We're heading towards this technofeudalism. And I think if the government, which is supposed to at least be accountable on paper to the people, right? We've got this like tiny sliver of some kind of input as people through government. If you take it away, we have no input. We have no say, very little say. And we're leaving it up to the regulators. Hopefully, please monitor them, but we don't, we really don't know. We're really giving up a lot of the oversight, I think, to these companies and to these banks who want to get into this money printing business, this digital currency business, this private money business. And I think we're giving up people power to corporations to do this on our behalf and to tell us how to transact. Because ultimately, it's not going to be a free market. We don't live in a free market system, which is what I think is very strange about some of the narrative around and the ideology around is that there's this belief that we're creating this free market, but we don't actually have a system of free markets.
But wait, luckily, every 4 years we get to vote away the companies that we don't like anymore, right? This is so good.
Isn't that great?
Let's. Damn, part of me wants my life back before you explained all this bill to me, but now that it's there, okay, let's fully snow crash this stablecoin bill. Yeah. What would happen? Because if we had all these corporations issue their own money, have their own printing game, being away from any regulation, any influence, like all these, don't be evil. No, we're just gonna take this away. It just doesn't work for us anymore, companies. What would happen? Like, for me, I have a hard time with like putting a label on me as a progressive or a libertarian, whatever. It's maybe I'm too dumb to decide, but maybe it's just me being, okay, I have libertarian sides on me, but I ultimately see I've obviously come from the left, and most of my friends are somewhere there. I still wouldn't say I'm politically left because I'm not active as in any political way. I just know that everything right wing usually pisses me off. This is kind of where I am. And if I look at libertarian, if I see a fully libertarian world and I deploy that on that concept that you see, I'm going to see corporations that issue money that says this money is not used by blacks. This money is not used if you're homosexual. What the freaking fuck. Sorry, are we actually cursing on the podcast, or have I destroyed this?
You can absolutely curse. I mean,
Jesus Christmas. This is horrible. This idea to me. I don't want to be able that certain goods are only gonna be available if you are gonna be using this kind of money issued by this corporation.
Yeah.
That's like the libertarian utopia where if you really have everything with property rights and everybody decides, and everybody gets to put a sign on their land which they own to say, like, I can shoot homosexuals on this land and it's cool. This is where to me the going full way libertarian always melts my brain a bit, where I think, like, how do you not see that this would turn everything into fascism again? As you know.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think a purely libertarian, in the sense of like the way that libertarianism is defined these days, not like the anarchist, anti-capitalist form of libertarianism, but is it's pretty self-centered. I think it's really just like a bunch of people who are like, I don't want you to tell me what to do kind of thing. Just let me live my life however way I want to. But it's a completely it's a dismissal of actually how society works and functions. And, we've got, from biology, from studying, from ecology, evolutionary biology, we know that really cooperation is the name of the game in the world, like the real world, outside of this like fake world that we've created for ourselves. And I think cooperation is still meaningful in this fake world, and we'd probably suffer a lot less if we allowed ourselves to cooperate more. So yeah, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think the libertarian view, when you take it to its end, to its extreme end, is really this kind of fascist perspective, this authoritarian perspective, this view of like, I'm king of my own domain. Don't cross me. Where in reality, it's like our individual freedoms are tied to each other. So we are connected to each other. If I do something that harms you, I'm harming your freedom. So I have to take into consideration who you are and the community and the people around me and people I don't even know. How will I affect them? Right? That's the full picture of liberty. Like, your liberty doesn't exist just for you. It exists in connection with other people. So yeah, this whole, going back to the stablecoin legislation that passed, I mean, I feel like people in Bitcoin who support this are being pretty selfish and are probably thinking, I don't care, I'm comfortable and I'll be fine no matter what happens. And it's probably true for them. They're probably going to be fine. But for most people, they won't be.
What's the selfish incentive here?
The selfish incentive? Well, they don't want the government to tell them what to do.
But that's so short-sighted.
Of course. But most people are short-sighted. Most people, even though, like, talking about memes, going back to the meme discussion, here's another meme in Bitcoin. People used to talk about like short-term versus long-term, like low time versus high time thinking, which comes out of Austrian economics. And now you can clearly see that there's a lot of short-term thinking, very high time, like, let's get this done now. Let's do it fast. I want number go up now because I can just see like all of these like rich Bitcoiners who have been holding for a while, and they're like, oh, I'm in my 40s now, and I'm gonna die in like 20 years, so I need my Bitcoin to grow, right? Who knows, but. There's probably some of that. There's people are thinking in like, my life is short. I want to make something out of this. I want number go up. I want. And I think that really drives people, even if they don't realize that that's what driving them. And the stablecoins legislation doesn't make me feel any better about the situation we're in. Going back to the beginning of our conversation, Patrick, like, what is the culture of Bitcoin? Has Bitcoin succeeded? What is it really? What was it set out to do? Is it doing what it set out to do? Right now, I'm seeing one direction that Bitcoin is going. I don't think it was the original direction. I see Bitcoin right now is primarily going towards that path of a store of value for rich people. And that's a whole like new thing going on this cycle. Everybody's starting up their own Bitcoin treasury and buying up Bitcoin and holding it. at massive amounts, which if your whole goal with Bitcoin was to just see people hold it so that your number could go up on your wallet, then congratulations, you succeeded. But for progressives, I hope that you're thinking a little bit more than that, and that you got into this for a slightly different reason, and that you were trying to help people and maybe try to make the world a little bit better, or maybe a little bit different from the way it exists now. And maybe if that's what you believe, then I hope, you kind of see my point in that this is not good. And are we the baddies? Ask yourself, are we doing a good thing? Because we're kind of sitting on the sidelines here, and some of us are kind of supporting a lot of this narrative and going along with it. And I think we need to question ourselves, question our role in this and where it's going, and whether we're also responsible for what's happening, because this is not really, I would say, the best case scenario for Bitcoin adoption at the people scale. I would say it's great for number go up, but not for like people who could use it, who needed it, who could have done something with it. So yeah, I've sort of been a little, I would say, down on Bitcoin a little bit recently.
Look,
because of this.
Here's a scientist giving you proof that Bitcoin's lame.
Bitcoin is
at
lame.
the moment. This should be the episode title, I guess.
Bitcoin. Oh yeah, we should name that Bitcoin is lame.
Look, Margot, I'm super glad that I got you on this stablecoin tangent, even though I was worried that I didn't want to hear it, and I didn't want to hear it, and now I'm glad I heard it, because the way you put it all together and the perspective you gave, even if it took me being super anal about some stupid words in the Bitcoin community and probably pissing everybody off in there anyway, who cares? Thank you for this. And also, maybe we should support this freaking bill, because maybe it should be exactly happening that, like, maybe the same thing that should happen with all those treasuries actually not holding Bitcoin, blowing up because they can have their proof of reserves at some point, people. And because we always talk about these incentives, these inflection points where adoption suddenly kicks off for some reason, maybe we need to have the worst players on the market issue their stable coins and blow it up. Yes, it's going to hurt people, but it might be that inflection point that tells people to look, what's actually the alternative?
I think it's unfortunate. I just really quick, the opposition from the Democrats and the progressive Democrats in Congress was pretty dismal. Most of what they were concerned about was like illicit transactions, fraud, like, the same stuff that they say about Bitcoin. And I found that really disappointing, because I realized you guys have no idea what's going on right now. You don't understand the technological shifts that are happening right now. And so you cannot surmount any kind of opposition because you just don't understand. And I don't know, maybe that's a failure on our part because we really haven't explained it to them. But
because there's no incentive to lobby on that side, not as much as on the number go up side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with the Bitcoin Policy Institute. I'm a fellow there. We do great things, but I think we still have struggled with the Democrats, and the Democrats that have been open to what BPI has to say are really, corporate style Democrats than progressive style Democrats. And it's hard to reach them. I hope maybe, the Progressive Bitcoiners Incorporated as a nonprofit, they want to approach things as, from a progressive slant. So maybe they'll find ways in to communicate this stuff. But, we really have to make it very clear that there are clear issues within the whole crypto space in general. And the stablecoins legislation, to me, is just the first step towards changing the way our money works in a way that I don't think is really aligned with the original concept of Bitcoin, or what we were trying to do. And it's disappointing to see, people come out and defend stable coins and say like, oh, it's just one step, towards the inevitable. But I find it curious that everything seems to always just be one step towards the inevitable of Bitcoin adoption. But I personally think that there's a lot of things to be concerned about. And I have a feeling we will eventually see like some kind of Amazon coin come out, something like that soon, because these companies have been playing with the idea and banks have been playing with the idea. And I'm concerned. I'm just concerned. I'm a concerned talking head. What do I know? I'm just a physicist. I don't really know anything other than, we're going to blow through 2 degrees Celsius. So there's that too. Yeah. So
on the sidelines. Yeah, right.
Oh, by the way, guys,
by the way,
some scientists are saying that it's over. We're too late on climate change. So just hunker down and have fun. So,
it's not going to affect you if you avoid sunscreen, then you're going to be fine.
Well, it's only, I don't know if you heard, Patrick, but it's only going to affect like 3% of the GDP. So it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
Because climate change is outside and we have ACs.
The markets are going to be very
The markets can be fine
once we're gone.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening to us rant for an hour. Appreciate you hanging on. And I know it kind of was a negative rant, but just good to remind you that not everything is perfect in Bitcoin land, and you can do something about that. So, till next time, we'll see you then. I'm Margot Paez, and now, I guess I'll do it now. All right, everybody. We'll see you next month. Make sure to hit like, hit that subscribe button, follow, whatever, share us around town. But for now, your Bitcoin.
We're really dragging this longer and longer.
And now.
I'm so tired. The kids fell asleep shortly before we recorded. And at this point, I'm like, yeah.
No.
I'm making it longer again.
Ready?
Sorry.
And now.
I'll edit all this out, or maybe not. We'll see.
And now, your Bitcoin moment of Zen.
I'm not going to say anything more.
By some estimations, stablecoin issuers will become the largest holders of stablecoins, bigger than China, bigger than Japan. And I think that's critical at this point of high debt in the U.S. economy.
But it's so hilarious because by being the biggest holder of treasuries, they're facilitating the deficit. And then they turn around and go, if you're worried about deficits, you should buy Bitcoin. And it's like perfectly served up. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a productivity boost.